Hi, everybody. We're going to get going here in just a sec. Looks like a couple more people are joining us. I'm going to wait just another 30 seconds or so. In the meantime, I'm going to share my screen. Hi, Michelle, just a quick technology check. Do you see that I just switched to a web
Yes.
page?
Yes,
You
I
see
saw
my
that.
screen?
Thank you.
And then
Yes,
you
your screen
see,
sharing.
and now do you see the Office Space reference with
Yes.
the quote? Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. Okay, folks. Thanks for joining me today. My name is John Spinney. I'm with the Vermont Agency of Education. You got to hear my boss, Jackie, visionary and leader, speak this morning. We're very grateful to have her helping us with our special education systems and how we support the field at the AOE. I've been at the AOE about 15 years, and I cover post-secondary transition planning, as well as some of the equity issues that come up around students with disabilities accessing general ed initiatives like career and technical education, dual enrollment, high school completion program, Vermont virtual learning. And so we have quite a bit of guidance. Part of what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna show you how to find all of these resources. We have a huge array of new resources right now. So first off, we have to point out that as a state, we have been considered to be not that great, actually, in terms of special education transition planning. I think on the ground, in terms of what we are providing to students and in the great interagency work that's happening, I think we're a leader. But when it comes to the documentation and the IEP, it's been determined that we really need some support. And that is related to indicator 13. So of course, I have to make a joke about Office Space and that you all are gonna have to come in on Saturday to work on indicator 13, or at least the special educators in the group. Of course, we're kidding, but we need some help as a state. And really, it's understanding the elements of indicator 13. And once special educators understand that, the IEPs follow a much better trajectory in terms of promoting best practice, but on the other end, in terms of compliance. The Agency of Education collects and monitors these IEPs. So the first thing I want to get into is just to show you how do you find the resources on the Vermont AOE website? So related to transition, the first thing you do, the easiest way is just you Google Vermont AOE Special Ed. It's the #1 item right there at the top. I'm going to click that. And that's going to bring me to this page right here, resources for special educators and administrators.
So John, at this time, it's still showing the front page for the video. From the office, that'd be great. It's not showing you searching.
Okay, let me. Okay, how's that? Do you see the Vermont?
That's good. Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
So folks, once you get to this page, you're going to click right here, resources for special educators. You're going to scroll down. This is an A to Z list. You're going to scroll down to secondary transition. And this whole section has been completely revamped over the summer. All of the resources that were on our old AOE website are now here for transition. Some of them, I'm going to just do a quick highlight here before we really get into some of the more formal stuff around transition planning and indicator 13. I want to highlight a few resources here. For those of you that are new to transition services, or if you're a special educator that was an elementary level special educator and now you're at the high school, this is your page. Familiarize yourself with what is on here. You know, a great place to start is this transition guide that the feds put out. You could start there. The assessment toolkit is also very, very helpful and has a lot of great information about what assessments cover what, and then where would you find them and how to incorporate those. All right, I'm gonna have to pick up the pace a little bit. The graduation readiness tool is a tool that is for the IEP team to help quantify whether or not your student is going to be ready to graduate and whether or not your student has had access to transition services. Graduation for a student on an IEP is not just about meeting the local graduation requirements around proficiencies, okay? Or credits if someone is still using credits. It's about the access to transition services. And the readiness tool helps you get a handle on that. Okay, I'm gonna scroll way down to this Indicator 13 suite of tools. And this is where we're gonna get into this in just a second. We have a new Vermont transition plan form that's in the IEP. So the Vermont IEP has been updated. The transition plan in the Vermont IEP has been updated. And we're gonna get into that, it's very new. All right, but first what I wanna do is just go through a few slides. Everything I'm gonna go over with you is on the website. So everything has been vetted for accessibility. Michelle, do you see my screen now with the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Good.
So I'm not gonna go through all of these slides, but I want to go through some of the primary ones to help people get familiar with this. And for those that, in my experience, the districts that start to really do well with this indicator are the ones where the special ed directors are really involved with it as well and taking the time to understand it so that then they can be looking at the IEPs and know at a glance whether or not it's going to meet compliance. And just a quick note for those of you that are unfamiliar, every state has to report out to the feds around data related to a variety of different special education points and sort of different aspects of special education. So indicator 13 is related to the number of IEPs that are compliant, that have those compliant transition plans in the IEP. These are IEPs these are for students that are 16 and up, and their IEPs have coordinated, i.e. evidence of interagency involvement, very important, and we're gonna get more into that. But there should be coordinated, measurable annual IEP goals and transition services that will reasonably enable the student to meet post-secondary goals. Okay, I know that's kind of vague. We're gonna get deeper into this. So the biggest piece, if you're a high school special educator and you're trying to make sure that you're writing good transition plans, these are the 8 things you need to know. Everything you do in terms of writing a transition plan in the IEP should filter through these 8 things, okay? There needs to be evidence that the student was invited. Now, by the way, within the Indicator 13 checklist, and I'm gonna give you a quick snapshot of that too eventually, that's on our website. There's a special educator self-review checklist that you can use and check yourself against these things, okay? These 8 things. And if even the thing that can be frustrating for people is that if even one of these 8 things is not correct or in the IEP, then the entire transition plan is considered to be non-compliant with Indicator 13 and then would require some revision or some correction. So these are the 8 things. I'm going to run through them real quick. There needs to be evidence the student was invited to the IEP meeting. It should say right near the top, and we have improved and changed the Vermont template, and we're going to get to that, to really make this more clear, to really make all 8 of these things more clear within the IEP template. And of course, we want this to be more clear for parents as well. So, okay, the first thing, there needs to be evidence the student was invited, and just a statement, the student was invited on XYZ date, in person or on the phone, or however the special educator invited that student, okay? Number two, there needs to be evidence that there was invitation to other agencies, like Voc Rehab, perhaps developmental services, perhaps somebody from VSAC, maybe somebody from DCF or mental health. It depends on the student and the situation. However, if there is no indication that the special educator has invited any outside agencies, that would get marked as a non-compliant, and it would make the whole plan non-compliant. And number two is a very critical area. The reason is that our students, right, for those of you that are special educators, our students are still in your hands, right? Your school and your LEA is still looking after the student, is still responsible for providing a free and appropriate public education. However, when they graduate, all of that ends. Their entitlement to special education ends. And if there has not been any coordination with other agencies up until late in the game, it makes it much harder for the family, very frustrating for the family, and difficult. And that student it makes it a lot harder for them to be successful after high school. So after they graduate, for example, Voc Rehab is going to be kind of staying with them and looking after them and making sure that they're not going to close out that student unless they've already had that key number of days that they've been employed. The point is, you have somebody that is going to help with follow along your student. They're not going to just fall off the cliff. You've pulled in these other agencies. The third aspect to this is that there needs to be transition assessments. Okay, I am going to go through the sample students, so you're going to see some examples of that. This is an important area. This is the area that it's as a special educator, if you front load this part of it and make sure that you're doing adequate transition assessments from informal to formal, in a mix of different kinds of assessments that are allowing you to get a good glimpse into that student's needs, preferences, strengths, interests, you're going to now have all of this information and data that you can then go and write really good transition goals, post-secondary goals, and then annual goals. Number 4 is there needs to be measurable post-secondary goals, and those are actually written as outcomes. So these are things that take place after graduation, and you'll see on the sample. And if it's not written as an outcome that takes place after graduation, it would also be considered not correct in terms of compliance. The next section is making sure that there are annual IEP goals. Okay, those are the goals that the special educator and maybe the general ed teacher too, it depends on the situation, but those are the goals that that student is working on during the school year. It's that's where the LEA is on the hook. The local, your district is on the hook for that IEP in terms of the annual section of that annual IEP goal, what they're going to provide around transition. Whereas the post-secondary goal is something that, the post-secondary goal, since it is taking place after graduation, it might not change that much from year to year. It might get more refined a little bit. Whereas the annual IEP goals are changing each year. You know, hopefully the student had met that goal, and then the following year they're going to have a new annual goal, even though the post-secondary goal may be still the same. Like they want to work in the culinary field. Upon graduation, they're going to be employed in the culinary field. That might be their post-secondary goal, but their annual goal each year is going to be working on those skills that are moving them closer to being successful. Hold on one sec. Okay, and then the goals need to be updated annually. There needs to be transition services, and there needs to be a course of study. Okay, in order to have enough time here, I'm going to go back to the resources page, okay? Michelle, do you see me? Do you see that I'm back on the web page now?
Yes, it looks like it. At the top, it says personalized learning and transition,
Yep,
and you're scrolling. Yes.
yep. Okay, I'm going to click on Jody right here. So, folks, right here where this says the Vermont Indicator 13 suite of tools. Okay, this is all new information for Vermont. So we have the new blank template, and that's being incorporated into DocuSped and GoalView, and there's one other it's going to be in there as well. Here's a sample for Jody, and Jody's from the case study project. If you're interested in that, the case studies, you can look above later on. Here's the checklist, the self-assessment for special educators. I want to quickly show this, and then we're going to look at Jody's sample. Michelle, do you see the checklist I just pulled up?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So this is really just a quick one-page handy thing for special educators. Okay. So every time a special educator writes a transition plan in the IEP, just have this out. Go through it. Okay. Element 1, is there evidence that the student was invited? Yes or no? Element 2, outside agencies. Is there evidence that any representative was invited? Yes or no? Etc. And filter your entire plan through this and just check yourself and making sure that you're staying aligned to the indicator 13. Okay, so now we're going to do, I want to show you Jody. Let's see here. Oh shoot. Okay, bear with me. Okay. And Michelle, do you see me pulling it? Do you see Jody getting pulled up here? Her sample?
Yes. Jody Smith. Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Okay.
Great.
So let's run through this. This is on the new forms. And so you're going to start to see, if you haven't seen the template yet, and again, this might look a little different than it's going to look in GoView or DocuSped, and it's because everything that goes up on our website needs to be accessible. So this document has been vetted for accessibility. So just the formatting is a little bit different. However, okay, so we have our student invitation, evidence that the student was invited and the date of invitation. Jody was invited to the meeting in person, as well as a letter sent home on 4/15. Jody's mother was invited and attended as well. Outside agencies, okay, this little in italics section right here, this is part of the template, and it also references the regulation here. That's also new. We didn't do that on the old IEP. So again, this is just some added guidance. We tried to embed the guidance right into the document, okay? So in Jody's case, Voc Rehab Transition Counselor was invited on April 15th and attended the meeting. Okay, there's also a new section here, describe the coordinated interagency linkages and responsibilities. This used to be kind of in the back of the IEP, the back of the transition plan, and we moved it right up front. VR will provide progressive education opportunities for Jody to explore post-secondary options. Also, Voc Rehab will assist in tracking down any assistive technology needs. Okay, and just make sure that if you have an outside agency that is saying that they're going to do these things, make sure that they've actually said them versus the special educator just kind of puts something in there and asking them to do it, even though they haven't even asked them yet. So this is something that's done with the outside agency, this is something that they are going to do in this case for Jody. And they've agreed to. The assessment summary, okay? Probably the most important section, and this is a section that had a lot of changes to it. So transition assessments are an ongoing process of collecting data on the student's strengths, needs, preferences, and interests as they relate to the demands of current and future working, educational, living, and personal and social environments. In Jody's case, these are the different assessments she had, okay? And this is all a new section. So we created a little chart here for the special educator to write which assessment was done, the date, and then the summary of what results were found. And this is a big area that we've seen across the state where on the old template, A lot of special educators weren't always filling this out and weren't always using assessments to create the goals. And this section can be considered a running list. So each year you just would add to it within the IEP. Okay, so you have all these different assessments and what information was gleaned from those assessments. And then there's another section here that's still a part of the assessments, and it's identifying the strengths of the student, the needs of the student, the preferences of the student, and the interests. Okay, if as a special educator, if you put work and time into this section, the rest of the transition plan is going to be a lot easier to create, and arguably should be much more effective in terms of helping that student get where they need to be, because you've kind of drilled into what they're going to be good at and their interests and their skills. And again, if you come back the following year with a new assessment and they've changed, their interests have changed, there's nothing wrong with that. You just want to make sure that you've done the assessments, you've collected that information, and then you've filled this out. Okay, the post-secondary goals. Within 1 year of graduation, Jody will complete a preparatory course at the community college and obtain the work key certificate. If you were to look at the blank template of this, there's kind of a little part of the sentence is sort of filled out, because the special educator just needs to tap into the aspect that's specific to that student. Again, it's a little bit of guidance in terms of making sure to write these post-secondary goals as an outcome. Employment goal: within 1 year of graduation, after obtaining her work key certificate, Jody will obtain and maintain a full-time position in retail for competitive pay. Independent living post-secondary goal: within 1 year of graduation, Jody will live alone or with a roommate independently without live-in monitors in a supported living house or apartment. Okay, now each one of those 3 areas now has an annual goal. Okay, so Jody's annual goal for education and training: by the end of the school year, Jody will correctly read a minimum of 50 words related to community locations or her work, such as those that might be listed in work memos or bus schedules, within 4 seconds of seeing them 3 times in a row. Okay, measurable. That's what she's going to be working on this year. There's a second part of it too. Given a section of text containing known and or decodable words, Jody will read the text and answer at least 3 of 4 comprehension questions correctly 5 times in a row by April 2021. And then again, it continues to have an annual goal for employment. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here. And then there's an annual goal for independent living. Okay, so each of these areas has transition services associated with it. Okay, so what are so transition services for education and training? Now, keep in mind that the transition services aren't necessarily something that would be an additional cost. Okay, it's a little bit different than the services page. If there is going to be a cost, then you're going to want to have that listed on the services page as well. So in this case, transportation support, possibly audio, text, and oral testing to complete the certification exam. Transition services for employment, school-based and then community-based job coaching as necessary, visual reminders, regular feedback. And it also says who's responsible for this. And then there's a start date and end date to those services. That's all new in this year's template. Again, there's transition services for independent living as well. Course of study. This section is really to make to be what are the primary courses that this student is going to need to move towards meeting their post-secondary goals. Okay, I want to make sure and see what we have for, if there's any questions in chat. I just need to sort of pull up my chat here. Okay, so if you have questions, please type them into the chat. Let's see. Looks like I don't have any questions right now. If there's no questions, I'm gonna just keep going here a little bit. So I've showed you the new IEP template. And now I want to show you this. We have an indicator 13 technical assistance sheet. This sheet, again, is for special educators, and it just gives more depth to understanding indicator 13 and the checklist. So remember, we had the special educator, the self-review checklist. This is the same, these are the same 8 things, but this just gives more in-depth information about each one and instructions, really. So is there evidence that the student was invited? You know, locate the invitation to the IEP meeting and look for evidence that the student was invited. That one's pretty straightforward. Some of these are a little more nuanced, like the assessment section, for example. You know, there's a lot of information there. Transition assessments are the underpinning to the creation of a successful IEP transition plan. By the way, we are considering rolling out a new program called Local Transition Leaders, and they would be special educators who are writing transition plans, and once a special educator has a certain number of indicator 13 compliant plans, like they've proven that they understand it, they would be considered one of these local transition leaders. And then we might it's a little bit of an uncooked idea. You guys are likely to hear about it down the road, but it's kind of a, we're considering how to roll out just another capacity building initiative at the local level. And so once you have these local transition leaders, we can then be doing a community practice and some ongoing support. But not only that, those experts could be dispatched within their district to be supporting other special educators who might not know this. Any questions? Only got a couple minutes here. And folks, if you have questions about this content, my email is right here on the bottom of the page. Everything I've gone over today is up on our website. Just a quick, well, I got one more minute here. I mean, really take a look. The summary performance we have a new Vermont template that is required for any student on IEP that is graduating. It's all federal. It's part of IDEA, special ed law. So there's a sample summary performance and then a template. And that really is issued to the student prior to graduation. And the student should be involved in writing it. So John, are you able to attend trainings? Well, yes, and next week on the 20th, I'm giving an in-depth indicator 13 training, and there's already quite a few people registered for that. That will be recorded. It's going to be a little more in-depth than this. And oh, this workshop ends at noon. Okay. I don't know why I thought 11:45. Okay, all right, I got 15 minutes. Okay, so why don't we take a look at, I want to show you Yeah, Jeremy, I can pull up the link for that, and I'll paste it into this. Well, I don't know if I have the link handy. I can, it's going to be on Microsoft Teams. I'm going to try to post a link before we go to the October 20th training. I'll try to post it right here in the chat. But in the meantime, I want to just show you guys a few more resources. So the summary of performance. Again, this is the document that all students who were on an IEP need to be issued this document prior to graduation. So this template represents a baseline for the required fields within a summary performance document. School systems may expand on this document, but would need to include these fields at a minimum to meet compliance under IDA. The AOE recommends use of this tool in lieu of creating something new. Okay. What follows is a summary of performance for Roy, and for those of you that have been around, you may remember Roy. I made Roy he's a fictional student, and we had a summary of performance template that we made quite a few years ago, and we've revamped it, and just making what we were finding is that there was a lot of special educators that just didn't realize they had to do a summary of performance or didn't know about the summary of performance. Okay, this really is a key piece of information, and it's kind of a passport for that student when they leave high school. Okay, this is a document that could go to a number of different folks, and it's really up to the student and the family how they utilize this, but it's absolutely required that they get this. And it could go to the student support office at a college. It could go to the developmental services office, the intake office. It could go to an employer. And really what it is here are the things that worked well for this student when they were in high school. Here were some of the typical accommodations that they had. Here were some of the other challenges. And the student needs to be involved in the creation of this. The student should be comfortable with this. Okay, so just going to go through this. So the post-secondary goal section, you would take these three post-secondary goals, you just take them right from the IEP for that student. Okay, that part's easy because that's already been done. Because you've already created the transition plan, long before this. Remember, the summary of performance is just done within a few months of graduation. Okay, student input. What are my strengths? What are my challenges? What strategies help me in school the most? The best way someone can assist me is, and have your students, of course, this is their input, and this is helpful information for folks that are going to be working with your student after they leave. By going through this whole process, you're easing the transition to life after high school. You're making it much less of a cliff. It can be a cliff for some students if they did not have transition planning, if they didn't have a summary performance. And this is very helpful for those providers, whether it's voc rehab, developmental services, student support person at a college, whoever it is. This is helpful for them to know. Okay, the rest of this is really kind of breaks it down by section. So in this case, cognitive performance is a strength. And then there's a statement on their present level, and then any essential accommodations or modifications. And then it goes through each of these sections: academic performance, math, written language. Roy is a young man who has been identified as someone on the autism spectrum and struggles with some social interactions and routine and transitioning in a day-to-day schedule. And you'll see it starts to get into some of that. So again, we have community employment, we have education and training, independent living. So in this case, independent living is considered a challenge. Roy is currently working on learning personal banking and budgeting. He has great cooking skills. Roy struggles with interactions in the community with people he doesn't know. He benefits from high school level social stories prior to going out in the community. Communication is a challenge. Roy is able to articulate his goals of going to college and becoming an athletic trainer. He struggles to ask for help in social situations when he gets confused. And then essential accommodations. Roy's antecedent when he is confused in social settings is a very odd facial expression. When he makes his face, it's important for people who work with Roy to learn this. He benefits from open questions from a teacher or supervisor. So for anybody that is going to be working with Roy, this kind of stuff is very helpful, right? Let's just check on the chat here. Looked like we had possibly a question. Okay. John, can you speak to whether special ed needs to end the IEP and switch the student to a 504 prior to graduating? Okay. So this is an age-old one, Shelley. That's good that you brought it up. I should put something, we have some information on this. I'm going to get it added to the website. So the answer is, sorry, for folks who didn't see the question, the question is, should you, prior to graduation, should you take your kid off an IEP and put them on a 504 before graduation if they're heading off to post-secondary ed? The answer is no, you should not be putting them on a 504. The 504 is building specific. So the college, the post-secondary institution would be required to write that 504, okay? What you are required, Shelley, and any special educator, is this summary performance, okay? So take some of that energy that maybe was confusing culturally here in Vermont. This has always been a question for a long time. And just put that into the summary performance. That's what is going to be most helpful in this situation. And then the college would be writing the 504. And if there's been some good quality transition planning, prior to graduation, the student is going to should have some understanding and a sense of, well, what are the supports and services I can get in college? Have they had a chance to visit and meet with the student support office and get a feel for what kinds of services they might be able to provide? And it's important for the student to go and experience that and get a little flavor of that prior to graduation. Especially obviously we're talking about kids heading off to post-secondary ed, okay? Every college has a student support office or an ADA office. They have different names for them. There, by the way, while we're on it, real quick, well, if I scroll off of this, I'm going to lose what we were going over with the summary performance, which is probably fine. I just wanted to give you a glimpse into it. But if you go back to the main special ed, our secondary transition section, what we have, there's a resource here, dual enrollment. Well, there's two different resources. Dual enrollment implications for special education, okay? That's actually kind of like a flow of considerations for the IEP team. If you have a student that wants to do dual enrollment, there's a lot of considerations the IEP team should be looking into. And that tool is specifically for that. You would be looking at this prior to your student getting enrolled. And then right here, dual enrollment. So this is the disability services contact information, and you can use this in two ways. You can, of course, use this for kids who are dually enrolled. But if you have a kid and you have a student that, let's say, is, they're going to be going on to Castleton State, let's say. Well, here is Gary Volpe, who is their student support disability services coordinator. He would be a great person for the IEP team to reach out to. hey, can we set up a visit? Our student is going to be going to Castleton next year, and we just want to support good transition planning, and we want to have the student look at, just come visit the student support office and maybe do a tour or something. And that's really something the family could do. Okay, let's see here. We go. Okay, the session ends in 5 minutes. Yep. Please copy this link. Okay, this is the link. Michelle has pointed out the link we need to get back into the main session. Okay, so that's good. I wish there would be a tab in DocuSped for the summary performance. Okay, Jen, that's a good point. Let me see what we can do on that one. Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming. Jeremy, I'm going to post the link to the October 20th training in this chat if I can, not to be confused with the link Michelle just posted. Emily pointed out that any college admissions office can also support connecting a student to the appropriate disability office. Excellent. Okay, thank you everybody. And if you have more questions, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm gonna stop sharing, but I'm gonna post that. I'm gonna find that link for anybody who wants to do the October 20th training. Thanks everybody, and have a good rest of your day.